So first up, I have a story here from Stereo Gum. Taylor Swift's label will now make artists wait twice as long to re-record music. She just released the Taylor versions of her Red album, which had a whole bunch of extra material and fun stuff on it. This is the second one that she has recorded or re-recorded. And the article goes, as Taylor Swift has been making a big deal about re recording her old albums in order to regain control of her masters, her parent label, Universal Music Group, has been reworking its contracts to make sure its other artists would have a harder time doing the same thing. As the Wall Street Journal reports, UMG has been making new agreements with artists, effectively doubling the amount of time that the contracts restrict an artist from re recording their work. Previously, agreements stated that an artist could not re record their songs until 5 years after they delivered their last recording under their contract or 2 years after their contracts end. So they had to wrap up the entire deal. New contracts make that time period 7 and 5 years, respectively, as well as instating another 7 year period where the artist cannot re record more than 2 songs.
Yeah,
A
so let's
person,
let's do let's do a little backstory really fast. So with
sure.
Taylor and what she's doing on re-recording, the reason she's re-recording is because her record label owns the masters. The masters are the final recorded versions of her songs. So as part of her record deals, the label owns everything. We heard obviously she was incredibly upset when her catalog was sold without her permission. Now, contractually, she probably did not have a right to say one way or another what happened with her music because the label owns it, but nonetheless, it's kind of more of a respect thing, I think, at that point. And she even wanted to purchase them, and they were, selling them for too much and this and that. So that's basically what happened. So her only recourse at this point is to remake the songs. And the reason why she can do this is because in these record label agreements, the artists retain ownership of what's called the composition, right? So that Orko, your music producer, when you make a song in its original format, it's a composition.
Right.
And then as soon as you record it, it becomes a master. And then the master is the thing that the record label owns. So what you just kind of went through is you described typically Universal, when it does its deals, it says you can't re-record these songs for at least 5 years
Right.
or 2 years after basically your contract expires. And
Right.
so what we're hearing now is that in at least one instance, Universal has decided to voluntarily double that period. And so, the question is, are they doing this because of Taylor Swift going and re-recording their masters?
Sure.
And they want to make sure that other artists can't go and just re-record their music?
Sure. It's obviously sounds like a response. I mean, the industry is changing. Taylor Swift is making another big move to help, make another change in the industry. And there's a reaction to this action.
Now, Universal has stated that no, this was not in reaction to Taylor Swift. And in fact, we were starting to make these changes in our contracts well before then to just keep up with the digital age and with the fact that anyone can record anywhere at any time. And it's very inexpensive to do that. I don't think that that's something new. I think that artists have been able to do that now for a long time.
I think that, and they may be telling the truth, but the success of these re-recordings that Taylor is doing has definitely put the gas on. Let's hurry up and make this change as fast as possible. And there's no way that did not have an impact. They may be right. There may be all kinds of ways that they're trying to, for lack of a better term, screw the artists. As soon as they can't let them have too much. But I think that definitely this helped influence the discussion.
Now, in Universal's defense, right? So I with through my law firm, we represent many artists and we do deals with Universal. So I definitely work with them. And so in their defense, you could say not so much screwing the artist, but more of protecting the investment because Taylor Swift going and re-recording her masters and now releasing them and the incredible success that particularly this recent album has had. I mean, without directly saying it, she's telling her fans to go listen to the new stuff, don't listen to the old stuff. And so that's going to hit the record label's bottom line. They're not going to be earning as much on these recordings anymore. So, one way to look at it.
And she's also putting the money behind it because the recordings sound great. the re-recordings sound great. So
They do sound.
I and Taylor Swift's fans are definitely on her side. So I think that will become, now these new recordings will become the official recordings as far as her fans are concerned.
Yeah, and so, I think if Universal was doing this in, reaction to Taylor Swift, they're saying it wasn't, it started long ago, but it's to protect the investment and to make sure that other artists can't go and do this exact same thing in just a couple of years after they leave the label. Now, Taylor Swift went on Jimmy Fallon and really liked her interview, but she was talking about one of the songs called All Too Well, and there's a 10-minute version of it on her record. And I loved that she basically was just describing, I think it was before rehearsal. She was just playing these four chords over and over and over. And then the band just kind of started joining. And so it became this 10-minute song as they were kind of playing through and jamming. And I think it was mom who kind of went to the sound engineer after the rehearsal was done and said, "Hey, did you record that by chance?" And he had.
I'm gonna need that copy.
And so they got that copy, and she just goes, "I this was the song as it was originally written." And she goes, "Because the fans have basically lined up with what I feel is the strongest song and the song that I love so much." She goes, "I had to release this 10-minute version, but who does a 10-minute song? Taylor
It,
does."
it just goes to show the power that an artist can have. Now, you were making some interesting points earlier about the label protecting its investment, and this the showing the how this successful it is. This is could become a model for artists, right? So let's say if somebody is signed to a record label for 5 years, and then they want as soon as they get out, maybe they were lucky enough to have a song or an album that just went 20 times platinum and stuff like that, but they didn't earn any money from it because of the record deal. And they become, a strong following and stuff. So they want to re-record it. So maybe they can, like Taylor Swift can do, they can start getting those plays and it can be the official thing. And then, that just kind of takes away, from the work as well as the label has done. So that it could become a tricky business model for the plans of artists, just, to go, "Oh, don't worry about it. If we have something that goes big, we'll just re-record it." But I will say that a lot of artists do that and re-record their stuff, and they're not of the quality that Taylor Swift has put into this album. So I,
Yeah,
I
and
can
that was
say that
something
right off the bat.
when we first heard that Taylor was planning on doing this and that she was going to recreate the music, that was something you and I said to each other. We just went, "Will the songs have the same essence?" It's incredibly difficult to even capture the same vocal performance for any artist, let alone having productions if you have live instruments. But the fact that, let's say, she was able to get the same producers and mixers and mastering engineers, I mean, to really capture a very similar sound, number one, is going to make the fans happy because they want to hear the songs as they've come
They
to know
remember
and
them.
love them. And so, since she was able to actually do that, that's a phenomenal feat for sure.
Yeah, so I'm just excited to see just how this kind of works out, what kind of changes will come from the industry, and just see if we see other artists following in suit.